Then let's cultivate our motivation. And think of all the sentient beings, the ones we know, the ones we don't know, the ones we like, the ones we don't like. And recall that everybody's the same in wanting happiness and not suffering. And we're all pretty much the same in being overpowered by our afflictions that, when they manifest in our minds strongly, cause us to make very unwise decisions and choices. And strongly influenced by our previous actions, our karma, that put us face to face with certain situations and the appearance of certain situations. So it's not that people in their heart wish others harm. It's that they are very confused about what creates happiness and what creates misery. And so in their search for happiness, they do things that bring misery upon themselves and others. And so seeing that's how we are, then let's give others a break and see that they're stuck in that same dilemma. And with compassion for ourselves and others, really aspire to turn this situation around as much as we can. And also realizing that all of us have the Buddha nature, the natural Buddha nature, the emptiness of our mind, the evolving Buddha nature, the different factors that can be transformed into an awakened being's mind. And so that for ourselves and others, no matter how confused we may be and the kind of dreadful actions we may do, motivated by that confusion and ignorance, still the possibility of awakening remains, and it can never be taken away. And so let's go forward with that kind of perspective, knowing that if the causes are changed, the results will also be different. And thus, if we can transform our own minds through practicing the Dharma, and then influence others in a constructive way to do the same, then totally different results can come about. And so there's always the prospect of a good kind of change. And so there's always hope and optimism. And so with a motivation of bodhicitta, the most optimistic perspective around, then let's share the Dharma together today. Today I thought to read to you some verses from Shantideva, his text, Engaging in the Bodhisattva's Deeds. But before that, because I still have that request that came up at lunchtime the day before yesterday, to talk about how to approach the world and what's happening in it with a hopeful attitude. then I thought I should talk about that first. And before I talk about that, and kind of related to that, there was a question that came that said, please talk about Vajrasattva practice and the Me Too campaign. What does abuse do? What do the abusers do, and what do the abused do? Okay. So,
excuse me, could we get that shade down, please?
it'll change in a minute. See, it just did. And even if she didn't do that, it would change. So yesterday I was saying, oh, this is a women's issue. And then I thought about it some more, and that isn't right. It's a human being issue. Yeah. And so it's not really proper to say it's a women's issue, because it concerns everybody. Yeah. So in that case, I think when people get to the point where they can acknowledge that they've harassed others or abused others, then of course they need to engage in the four opponent powers: regret, restoring the relationship, making a determination to avoid the action again in the future, and some kind of remedial behavior. Yeah. So that's pretty clear for the perpetrator. Yeah, that's what they need to do. Now, what about the person who was abused, who is angry? Yeah, who is angry, who is intimidated, who how else? What other feelings would be in there? Feeling violated, or feeling not violated is what we think somebody does to us. Feeling, what's a word that is not implying? Disempowered, maybe. Yeah, disempowered or impinged upon. Yeah, over here. Hypervigilant. Fearful. Depressed, what? Shameful. Yeah. Okay, so there's a whole mixture of different emotions when you've been the person on the receiving end. So if you are let's just approach it this way. So if you're holding negative emotions, yeah, emotions like anger, yeah, or whatever, or emotions that, well, it's a little bit different, I think, feeling impinged upon, feeling depressed or whatever. But to recognize, okay, because there's two different kinds of emotion. There's one emotion where you're just stewing in it, and there's the other emotion where you want to attack back, okay? For the emotion that wants to attack back, yeah, that mind that is planning revenge, even though it's totally understandable, is a mind that of malice, which is one of the 10 destructive actions. So that mind needs to be purified. Yeah. So even though it's totally understandable that somebody is angry, that mind still is something that is creating more negative karma. And it would do you your own good to be able to release it, because who likes to go around angry all the time? feeling, just holding that rancor of wanting retaliation. Yeah. So to be able to purify that. Yeah. Now, you're going to say, well, how do I generate a positive attitude towards the person who abused me? Yeah. I hate that person. I want them to get hit by a truck. I want. Okay. How do you have a good feeling about that person? Well, one is to realize that that person was in a lot of pain, a lot of confusion. They did what they did because they thought it was going to alleviate their pain. It didn't. They don't always feel so good about what they've done. Although some people totally spaced out, they don't even recognize that they've harassed somebody else or abused someone else. But you can, trace it back to their confusion. Try and have some compassion for them. Also, and this part is hard, but I think it can be effective. Remember yesterday we were talking about confessing things that we can't remember, that we might have done in a previous life that we can't even remember, and using people's negative actions this life as a reminder for us that I still have the potential to act like that as long as I have afflictions in my mind stream. Okay, so based on that, then apply that to this situation. And in a previous life, or maybe earlier this life, I harassed somebody, I abused somebody. So what happened to me is the result of my own karma. Okay? Doesn't mean I deserve to suffer. It just means that under the influence of my own self-centeredness and my own confusion and negative attitudes, in a previous lifetime, I did something similar to what this person did. Because I haven't always been me, at least not the me of this lifetime, and we've been everything and done everything in samsara. So that can be a little bit uncomfortable to look at. Yeah, but it can also, if you have the right attitude, it can be liberating to look at, because then you see, oh, this is a result of my own wrongdoing. Yeah, I'm going to be really determined now never to abuse anybody, never to harass anybody, never to do something painful that, causes somebody else embarrassment or shame, And so you make a very strong intention never to do that. And that strong intention, holds you to a virtuous path, and acts as a fence so that if ever in this lifetime or a future lifetime, strong negativity arises in your mind such that you want to harm somebody, having made that strong intention, especially repeatedly over and over and over again, will help you prevent acting in that way again. And since we don't know what kind of situations we're going to encounter in this life, we may think, oh, my life is like this, and have certain expectations. But things can change very radically, and we can find ourselves in a situation we never thought we would ever be in. And I think there's many people that happens to in life. I've done quite a bit of reading about the Cultural Revolution in China. those people, even before the Cultural Revolution, the 49 Revolution, when the communists took power, so many people who were imprisoned in Tibet and China, they never, if you had asked them a few years prior to that, they never would have thought that they would spend time in prison. Never. Yeah? During the Cultural Revolution, where children and parents were turning on each other, and teachers and students were betraying each other's trust, nobody a few years before that would have ever thought they would be involved in that kind of situation. Yeah? So this means that it's very good for us to make very strong resolutions now, because who knows what's going to come in the future. Okay? So I'm not talking about being paranoid about the future. I'm talking about setting a strong determination to keep our mind virtuous and compassionate no matter what situation we encounter. Okay? Then, as far as the other emotions, the depression, the feeling of being violated or hinged upon or shame or whatever, to explore those in yourself and realize that behind those feelings, there's a story. That is not just raw, non-conceptual feeling. That is thought. Yeah? Okay? Shame is thought. It's a way of thinking. Yeah, depression. I'm not talking about clinical depression, by biological things, but regular depression. That is based on thought. So we have to realize that a lot of our psychological heaviness is based on the way we're thinking, and that the way we're thinking is incorrect. Yeah, it's flat out spazzatura. One Italian word I remember. No, that one's Spanish, isn't it? Is it Spanish? Spazzatura? No, must be Italian. Okay. What's Spanish?
I don't know, but that's Spanish.
Okay. Well, I have a bad accent. No, it must be Italian. Okay. So, yeah. So, to realize that our mind is thinking in a totally incorrect manner. Yeah? Just because somebody abused us, what kind of reason is that to feel shame? Because our mind is going through, on Thursday night we went through the syllogism. It's making up some garbage syllogism. Yeah? So I am shameful because I was raped. Why does that make you shameful? The person who raped you should be shameful, not you. Yeah? So we have to look and say, why am I doing that to myself? Well, because society, always blames women. They always blame the victim. Well, society doesn't know what it's talking about. I don't have to believe what society says. Yeah? So this is what I was talking about yesterday, when we start to think about the way we've been conditioned and be aware of societal beliefs and how they affect us. And now as adults, choose what we want to think, what we believe in, and what societal things are rubbish. Yeah? And saying that the victim, something's wrong with the victim, is rubbish. Okay? So, we have to use our wisdom here. Yeah, and not just go along with all these screwy conceptions people have. Okay? Now, it's going to take time to change our way of thinking, because lots of times we've had many years of people telling us a certain thing, but even more than them telling it to us telling it to ourselves. Yeah? Somebody insults us once. We remember that insult every day. We do it to ourselves. Okay? So every time you say to yourself, I'm no good because somebody did this to me, yeah, that's our problem, isn't it? We're the ones thinking that. We're the ones going along with that. Where is our wisdom? Yeah, we need to call up our wisdom. Yeah. And that stuff, whatever people said to us once or twice, we are choosing not to believe, because with our wisdom, it's very clear. Yeah, I did not go looking for that situation. It was not something I volunteered to do. Yeah, it wasn't something I initiated. Therefore, why am I going to sit and blame myself and feel ashamed, like I'm broken goods or, worthless goods? That's not true. I have the Buddha potential. If I get myself together, I can do amazing, incredible things in my life. Yeah? And have that confidence and go forward. And you're going to have to train yourself again and again to think like this, because the old spazzatura comes back. Yeah? But every time it does, you catch it and you say, that is, and throw it out. Okay?
In my work, I speak with many victims, so I have a question about, and most of them do not have Dharma practice.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe speaking to them, especially about karma and perhaps reflecting on past action, would
No, don't do that.
It is deeply harmful, and it just shuts them right down.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm thinking not to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, I'm talking to a group of people who came here to learn Buddhism, so I'm talking Buddhist talk. Okay. No, you do not tell somebody who's not a Buddhist about karma. They totally don't get it. Okay. I've made that mistake once not with those people, with some, another kind of group. You never do that. But rather you talk about this last thing, about looking at the way you think about yourself and what you're telling yourself about yourself and choosing what you're going to believe. And you don't have to take society's views or your family's views or men's views or whoever it is views as your own. You get to choose what you believe. Yeah, and talk to them about their potential. Yeah, no, don't talk about karma.
I guess one question I've had about this topic is, how do you differentiate between kind of giving self-love versus being self-absorbed and like dwelling on your self too much? Mm-hmm. It seems like a fine line sometimes.
Okay. Loving yourself or having compassion for yourself is simply saying, I'm a worthwhile person. I wish myself happiness. I wish myself to be free of suffering. Self-absorption is, I deserve happiness. I don't deserve suffering. Why are these people not giving me the happiness I want? I should retaliate and make them do what I want them to do. They're not kind to me. They're mean to me. They don't understand me. They don't appreciate me. They take me for granted. That's self-absorption. Okay? And it's anger. It's anger.
Just a response to that is the self-absorption sounds so much outside of self, and yet we call it self-absorption.
Yeah. Well, self-absorption, it's linked with blaming others for our problems, isn't it? So it's putting everything on the outside and making ourselves into a victim. Yeah. Nobody else makes us a victim. Yeah, we make ourselves a victim by thinking in a certain way.
I've had a strong urge to respectfully and privately confront people who've disrespected me in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And I've picked the least egregious, not transaction, but, transgression to confront first, and it went really well. And I got a very genuine, heartfelt apology, and I just felt like it had resolved, and I, was glad to get the apology, and it's like, yeah, that got taken care of. Now I've got these 3 other worse situations to try to resolve. But I just want to make sure that when I'm confronting these individuals that my motivation is really strong and set well. And I guess I don't trust myself to not have a little tinge of anger, even if I am calling them in instead of calling them out. I know a lot of these guys are paranoid. One has a really big career, and I'm going to cause them some anxiety and some tumult or whatever, some disturbance, even if it's with this intent of making them more aware, letting them know that we don't accept that behavior anymore in this society. Women are collectively saying no, and I'm one of them, and you got to pay attention to this, and it wasn't okay. How much deference to give someone who, didn't see your humanity, I guess, in making sure your motivation for confronting them when you're going to cause them anxiety.
Yeah.
Where's
Remember,
that?
their anxiety is not your responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
But I know I'm going to cause it. So
Yeah.
do I just cause it anyways and know that my motivation is awesome?
If you're sitting there like, let's stick the knife in, a little bit and pretend I'm innocent, that's not a good motivation. But if somebody did something that is disrespectful and inappropriate, feeling a little bit uncomfortable about what they did may be good for them. It may make them think a little bit that, my actions have results. So you might say, look, I'm not going to call you out in the company and get you fired, but, and say that so that the person's relaxed about that, but then say, but you need to know this because this behavior is inappropriate, and if you continue with it, at some time or another, somebody will call you out in front of the company and get you fired. Yeah? So, yeah. I mean,
Watch out, boys.
Remember, you're not trying to make somebody feel bad. Yeah? But if somebody has behaved atrociously, feeling bad might be helpful to them. Okay? When I was in Taiwan, last month, whenever it was, I don't know where I am now, I was talking with one of the abbesses at a nunnery where we stayed. And we were talking about sometimes how when we point something out to certain disciples, they cry, you know? And it's like, so, so she said, if they cry because they realize they did something wrong and they feel bad about it, that's good. That shows that they're willing to grow, you know, and they want to change. If they cry because they think, you know, I didn't do this and it's unfair and you shouldn't talk to me this way and I'm wonderful, then she said, then you can't train them at all. Okay? So, you know, I thought it was, you know, I really listened when she said, you know, if they cry because they don't feel good about what they did and they want to change, that is helpful. So, you know, I'm not saying he's going to cry. Yeah, might do him good. But it could be something that would stop and make him think.
I've been thinking about it lately, and it's hard to get there, but our wish is always that this person has the Buddhahood in his heart. And we doing this to help them to get there, not because, I got you back. That's not it. That's where we need to shift our mind.
Yeah.
That now a lot of people, what's going on in the news, like, it's ugly. People are just, you're a bastard, and that's it. And, you know, hope you're going to go to somewhere else. That's not it. It's how can we help each other to grow?
Yeah.
And by saying and talking, this is what you're trying to do, right? For them to see how hurtful it was. And I trust that you can change. I trust that you can start respecting women or, you know, your wife. And that's why I'm talking, to help you.
Yeah. Well said. Thank you. This will be the last comment on this thread, and then I want to come back to the text.
So how explicit do you make that when you're confronting the other person, that you're doing it actually for their benefit?
You think like you get your head, you get your motivation, so that you're actually thinking and feeling like she just described.
Do you phrase it in that way too, or will that come across as condescending?
That I'm not going to tell you the technique, because what is most important is getting things clear inside. How you say it will flow naturally. Yeah. We always want to say, what do I do? What do I do? But it's more before what do I do? How do I get my own mind in a clear state? And then once that's taken care of, we kind of can figure out what to do. Okay. So, this is chapter 2 of Shantideva's text. Shantideva's first chapter was all about the benefits of bodhicitta. So remember, bodhicitta is part of the purification process, part of restoring the relationship. It's also, you know, the motivation that we try and cultivate day by day as our motivation for being alive and doing what we do, even though it's probably contrived at this level. Still, we do it again and again. Okay. So his first chapter was that uplifting thing that's about all the benefits of bodhicitta. The second chapter, it's called Disclosure of Negativity. Okay, meaning that I've created a lot of destructive karma myself, and this karma, like we talked yesterday, is obscuring my mind, preventing me from generating bodhicitta. Yeah, keeping me locked in my resentment, in my anger, in my feeling of entitlement. Yeah, because those feelings prevent us from developing bodhicitta, don't they? You know? If you feel the world, that the world is at fault for your suffering, how are you going to generate bodhicitta? Yeah, you're not, So we need to do a lot of purification and creation of merit. So chapter 2 starts off with the creation of merit, particularly here with offering, because that is in the 7-limb prayer, the second of the 7 limbs. And it's a very important practice. It accumulates great merit, especially when we make offerings to those worthy of honor. And it also purifies our stinginess, our self-centeredness, our miserliness, and so on. So I don't want to read maybe I'll just read some of it quickly. You can get the feeling. Try and visualize along as I'm reading, because these offerings are visualized offerings. Of course, if we can actually make them, it's even better. But there's nothing wrong with visualized offerings that are extravagant and so beautiful and so numerous that you can't even believe it, And when you visualize like this and offer this all to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, it creates a very happy mind. Yeah, because you're visualizing beauty, you're visualizing offering this stuff to the holy beings. So you're forming a relationship with the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And by visualizing beauty, it's taking our minds away from all of our complaints. Yeah, because you can't visualize offering beautiful things to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and still have a complaining mind. Yeah, it doesn't work. Okay, so just try and, I'll just read this, but try and go along with what I'm reading. Okay. In order to seize that precious mind, I offer now to the Tathagatas, to the sacred Dharma, the stainless jewel, and to the spiritual children of the Buddha, in other words, the Bodhisattvas, the oceans of excellence. I offer whatever flowers and fruits there are, and whatever kinds of medicines, whatever jewels exist in this world, and whatever clean, refreshing waters. Likewise, gem-encrusted mountains, forest groves, quiet and joyful places, heavenly trees bedecked with flowers, and trees with fruit-laden branches, fragrances of the celestial realm, incense, wish-fulfilling trees and jeweled trees, uncultivated harvests, and all ornaments that are worthy to be offered. Lakes and pools adorned with lotuses, and the beautiful cry of wild geese, everything unowned within the limitless sphere of space. Creating these things in my mind, I offer them to the Supreme Beings, the Buddhas, as well as to their spiritual children. O compassionate ones, think kindly of me and accept these offerings of mine. Having no merit, I am destitute, and I have no other gifts to offer. O protectors, you who think of helping others, by your power accept these for my sake. Eternally shall I offer all my bodies to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Please accept me, you supreme heroes. Respectfully, I shall serve you. Through being completely under your care, I shall benefit all with no fears of samsara. I shall perfectly transcend my previous negativities, and in the future shall commit no more. To very sweetly scented bathing chambers with brilliantly sparkling crystal floors and exquisite pillars ablaze with gems, having canopies above aglow with pearls. I beseech the Tathagatas and Bodhisattvas to come and bathe their bodies from many jeweled vases filled with waters, scented and enticing, to the accompaniment of music and song. Let me dry their bodies with incomparable cloth, clean and well anointed with scent, and then may I present these holy beings with fragrant garments of suitable colors. I adorn with manifold ornaments and various raiments, fine and smooth, the Aryas, Samantabhadra, Manjughosha, Avalokiteshvara, and all the others. Just like polishing pure, refined gold, do I anoint the Buddha's forms that blaze with light, with the choicest perfumes whose fragrance permeates 1,000 million worlds. And to the highest objects of giving I offer beautiful, well-arranged garlands, as well as enchanting, sweet-smelling flowers, such as lily, jasmine, and lotus blooms. I also send forth clouds of incense, whose sweet aroma steals away the mind, as well as celestial delicacies, including a variety of food and drinks. I offer the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas jeweled lamps, arranged on golden lotus buds. Upon lands sprinkled with scented water, do I scatter delicate flower petals. To those who have the nature of compassion, I offer palaces resounding with melodious hymns, exquisitely illuminated by hanging pearls and gems that adorn the infinities of space. Eternally shall I offer to all the Buddhas jeweled umbrellas with golden handles and exquisite ornaments embellishing the rims, standing erect, their shapes beautiful to behold. And in addition, may a mass of offerings resounding with sweet and pleasing music, like clouds that appease the misery of all, each remain for as long as necessary. And may a continuous rain of flowers and precious gems descend upon the reliquaries and the statues, and upon all the jewels of Dharma. In the same way as Manjushri and others have made offerings to the Buddhas, similarly do I bestow gifts upon the Tathagatas, the protectors, their bodhisattvas, and all. I glorify the oceans of excellence with limitless verses of a harmonious praise. May these clouds of gentle eulogy constantly ascend to their presence. With bodies as numerous as the atoms within the universe, I prostrate to all Buddhas of the three times, the Dharma, and the Supreme Community. Likewise, I prostrate to all reliquaries, to the foundations of an awakening mind, to all learned abbots and masters, and to the noble practitioners. And then comes a verse of taking refuge. I seek refuge in all Buddhas until I possess the essence of awakening, the bodhicitta. Likewise, I seek refuge in Dharma and in the assembly of bodhisattvas. Now comes the verses of regret for non-virtue. Okay. With folded hands, with palms together, yeah, I beseech the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who possess the great compassion and reside in all directions. Throughout beginningless cyclic existence, in this life and in others, unknowingly I committed negative deeds and ordered them to be done by others. Okay, so this we have done. Yeah, so initiated negative deeds ourselves and encouraged others to do them and rejoiced when others did them. So certain things we may not have done ourselves because we didn't want to, so we encourage somebody else to do it. But we accumulate the same negative karma as if we did it, plus the other person accumulates negative karma. Yeah, so if you want to help your friends and relatives, don't ask them to lie or so on for you. Overwhelmed by the deceptions of ignorance, I rejoiced in what was done. But now seeing these mistakes from my heart, I declare them to the Buddhas. Okay, so lots of times we didn't take part in something, but we read the news and we rejoice that somebody got killed. We rejoice that somebody got hurt or their property was destroyed. So even if it's somebody you don't like, even if it's somebody that you think is doing dreadful, harmful actions, we don't want to rejoice in anybody's suffering. It's more appropriate to make prayers that that person be alleviated of this suffering and the confusion that caused them to do those deeds that brought them the suffering. Okay? And it's also better to do the taking and giving meditation where we imagine taking on others' negativities and negative karma, using it to destroy our own self-centeredness, and then giving them our body possessions and merit. Okay, that's also a very good way to handle situations rather than rejoicing at other people's pain. Okay, so now here, this is really opening up to the Buddhas. So, like I said yesterday, the word for that's translated as confess means to split open. So now Shantideva is splitting that open, showing it. Whatever harmful acts of body, speech, and mind I have done in a disturbed mental state towards the three jewels of refuge, my parents, my spiritual mentors, and others, and all the grave wrongs done by me, so thoroughly negative and polluted by an abundance of faults, I openly declare these to the guides of the world. I may well perish before all my negativities have been purified, so please protect me in such a way as will swiftly and surely free me from them. Okay, so here Shantideva is moving into a whole section saying that we've committed these negativities. We don't even consider the fact that we're going to die, and that at the time of death, our body, possessions, friends, and relatives don't go with us. They all stay here. But what comes with us is our karma and the kinds of habituated mental states that we've developed. So not thinking about this, now, or not thinking about this in the past, and now becoming aware that I may well perish before I've had the chance to purify all this, then I'm in a bad way here. Yeah. I've kind of spent all my time accumulating negativities, thinking I was accumulating happiness. And now there's not enough time to make amends and purify as I need to do. And so, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, I need some help. Okay. The untrustworthy Lord of Death. So there isn't a real Lord of Death. This is anthropomorphizing things. Yeah. But the untrustworthy Lord of Death waits not for things to be done or undone. In other words, death doesn't wait until we've had the chance to purify or not. Death doesn't wait until the chance we've had to make amends or not. Whether I am sick or healthy, this fleeting lifespan is unstable. When death is, the causes for death are there, we go. Yeah. There's no bargaining saying, but, I have a lot of things on my to-do list. Can I wait and die in a couple of weeks after I've completed my to-do list? Or I've just about, ready to go on this lovely vacation. Can I go on it and then die afterwards? There's no opportunity to do this. Yeah, our lifespan is unstable. Leaving my friends, my relatives, my possessions, my body, I must depart alone. But through not having understood this, I committed various kinds of evil for the sake of my friends and foes. So not understanding that all friends, relatives, the body, possessions are all things that we can't take with us. Yeah, that are going to leave behind. Not understanding this, with our attachment, we've run around trying to get things as much as possible. With our anger, we've, retaliated when there's some impediment to us getting what we want. Yeah, or we've criticized, we've blamed, we've screamed, we've done who knows what. And a lot of this we've done for the sake of our friends and foes, the friends who help us get the worldly happiness, the foes who impede it. Yeah, and so we've got involved in a lot of negative deeds for the sake of transient things, not realizing that those relationships, those possessions, and so on, stay here and our consciousness goes on alone. And that's something really to think a lot about. My foes will become nothing. My friends will become nothing. I too will become nothing. Likewise, all will become nothing. Yeah. So it doesn't mean nothing. It means, well, my foes are going to vanish. They're going to die. My friends are going to die and vanish. Yeah, I'm going to stop existing. The continuity of my consciousness will go on, but whoever I think I am right now is not going to continue on to the next life. Yeah. But not having realized the impermanence, the transience of all this, I've taken everything so seriously and made a big deal out of so much that wasn't really worth making a big deal about. Just like a dream experience, whatever things I enjoy will become a memory. Whatever has passed will not be seen again. Yeah. So now everybody, wherever you go, everybody's clicking, taking selfies. Yeah. All these things, instead of living them and experiencing them, yeah, all you have is a bunch of photographs. Yeah. And then you live vicariously through the photographs, you know, with your heart being pulled in pangs of nostalgia for things that you never took the time to experience when you were there. You never really enjoyed the people around you and spoke to them from the heart and benefited them. You took lots of pictures of them and then gave them, you know, what do they call those electronic photo albums now? Yeah, that, and you just upload it. It's so easy, you know? And your Instagram and all your stuff. And then, okay, here's my life that I didn't live, but it's seen through my camera lens. Yeah. And don't you want to look at my life that I never lived? Because you're not living your life either. Because you're looking at my life and you're busy taking pictures of your life. Yeah. And all you have to show for it at the end is, you know, this digital photo book. Yeah. And do you think your friends and family are going to keep your digital photo book? Yeah? Garbage. No, they won't throw it out. They'll delete. Just like a dream experience, whatever things I enjoy will become a memory. Whatever has passed will not be seen again. Even within this brief life, many friends and foes have passed. It's very interesting sometimes. Sit down and make a list of everybody you know who has died. Yeah? And each year you watch that list grow bigger and bigger. And none of the people on it thought they were going to die that year. And sometime our name's going to be on somebody else's list. And then everybody will send around emails, oh, so-and-so died today, you know, such a kind, wonderful Dharma friend to us always. We will miss them forever. Please do prayers they have a good rebirth. And you send it out to 1,000 people, and then you go on with your day. Yeah? And so all the time, you know, when we could have been creating virtue and purifying, yeah, we spent creating non-virtue and reinforcing our negativities. And then we expect all our friends to pray for us after we die. Yeah? So, you know, it's better if we clean up our own life. Yeah, psychologically, spiritually, also materially. Yeah. Have you ever been the person who's cleaned out after somebody has died? Oh my goodness. The amount of stuff that other people could have used, but was stored away and forgotten about. Precious things that only that person cherished, that now you're sitting wondering what to do with. Because it's kind of a family heirloom, but you don't want it, and your siblings don't want it, but it was precious to your parents. So what do you do with it? Because you can't throw it out, because that's like disrespecting your parents, but you really don't want it, and your siblings don't want it either. What do you do? Yeah. So that occupies quite a bit of time, and a few boxes as well, that move from place to place, full of stuff that nobody takes out and looks at, but you can't throw away. Yeah? You have anything like that? My parents had these pictures taken of my brother and me. This was before my sister came along. He was maybe 2, I was 5 or something like that, very young. And they blew them up, and they were on their bedroom wall from ever since I can remember from that age until when my parents died. These photos were on their bedroom wall. Now, what do you do after my parents aren't there anymore? Yeah? What do you do with these? Do you want them? Nobody, my friends don't want them. I don't want them, but I also can't throw them out. So fortunately, I think my brother took them without asking my permission, but I don't want him to ask my permission. He can just have them. And maybe he just kept his and he threw mine out. That's okay, but don't tell me. Okay? But I don't want it. Yeah.
Sravasti Abbey Museum.
Yeah. Well, my sister-in-law just wrote that they're sending another package of old family photos to grow. I'm going to put them, I don't have time to go through them. They're going in the bottom of a drawer. You guys can sort through them after I die. What?
The box did arrive. You saw it?
No.
I put it on a chair in front of your.
Oh, is that what it was? It's heavy. I didn't look what was
I
inside.
didn't. There was no name, no nothing, so I opened it. And then I said, oh, green. Green, that's Venerable last name. But I only figured out when I opened the things anyway. And then I saw a picture of you. Oh, that's Venerable Children. So and that's why I put the thing with the green.
Okay.
You've got all kinds of storage you can bring in here.
Okay. What?
Lose the box.
Yeah. Lose the box. I can't lose the box. Somebody has to lose it for me. Well, maybe I'll bring some in and show you some. I'd have no idea what they sent. Yeah, because they were going through, and hopefully they'll sell my parents' house.
Maybe we could go through them around breakfast tomorrow.
Yes. Wouldn't that be fun? I hope you have a good breakfast. I'm not coming. Okay, let's get back to here. Okay. Even within this brief life, many friends and foes have passed. But whatever unbearable evil I committed for them remains ahead of me. Isn't that true? We did so many things for them in the past. That happiness is over. The experiences of the karma we created is in front of us. Therefore, through not having realized that I shall suddenly vanish, I committed so much negativity out of ignorance, attachment, and hate. Remaining neither day nor night, life is always slipping by and never getting any longer. Why will death not come to one like me? That's for those of us who feel that somehow we're not going to die. It happens to other people. While I am lying in bed, although surrounded by friends and relatives, the feeling of life being severed will be experienced by me alone. All of our loved ones cannot help us at the time we die. When seized by the messengers of death, what benefit will friends and relatives offer? My merit alone shall protect me then, but upon that I have never relied. O protectors, the Buddhas, I, so unconcerned, unaware of such terror as this, accumulated a great deal of negativity for the sake of this transient life. Who can afford real protection from this great horror? With terrified, bulging eyes agape, I shall search the four quarters for refuge. But seeing no refuge there, why no refuge? What can our friends and relatives do when we're dying? Cry. That's the last thing you want around you when you're dying, is a bunch of sobbing friends and relatives that you have to take care of. You know, when you're trying to die. You know, you want to just die in peace, and all these people are crying and grabbing onto you and saying, "Don't die." And it's like, leave me alone. Really, you know, I can't think of anything worse than to be surrounded by crying friends and relatives when I'm dying. Please, may I be spared from that. Yeah. I was helping one young man die, and he told his family very clearly before his death, if you're going to cry, you go out in another room. I don't want you around my bed crying. Okay. Our wealth, can that help us when we die? Doesn't matter whether you die on clean, white, crispy sheets or, you know, and on a dirty sheet. Doesn't matter if you die with a huge amount of money in your bank account or with nothing. Yeah, when you're dying, it's like, who thinks about this kind of stuff? Yeah, that stuff is just not important. But seeing no refuge there, I shall become enveloped in gloom. If there should be no protection there, then what shall I be able to do? Therefore, I now, not later, now seek refuge in the Buddhas who protect the world, who strive to shelter all that lives, and with great strength eradicate all fear. Likewise, I shall purely seek refuge in the Dharma they have realized, that clears away the fears of cyclic existence, and also in the assembly of bodhisattvas. Okay? So, you know, here he is imagining his death, our death, you know, and then saying, what do I do at the time of death? The only thing left is to take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And then the question says, well, why don't I do that before? And taking refuge isn't just going through the refuge ceremony. It's really building a relationship in our heart with the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Yeah, building that relationship, that feeling of closeness, such that when we are in desperate ways, whether we're dying or not, we can remember the teachings. We can remember the qualities of the Buddhas. We can remember how to apply the teachings to our own mind, to pacify our mind. I, trembling with fear, offer myself to Samantabhadra. To Manjushri also I make a gift of my body. So here, going to the Bodhisattva Sangha for refuge. To the protector Avalokiteshvara, who infallibly acts with compassion, I utter a mournful cry, please protect this one who has done negativity. In my search for refuge, I cry from my heart for Akashagarbha, Kashidigarbha, and all the compassionate protectors. And I seek refuge in Vajrapani, upon the sight of whom all harmful beings, such as the messengers of death, flee in terror to the four quarters. Okay, now here comes. Previously, he's talking to the Buddhas. Previously, I transgressed your advice, but now upon seeing this great fear, I go to you for refuge. By doing so, may this fear be swiftly cleared away. If I need to comply with the doctor's advice when frightened by a common illness, then how much more so when perpetually diseased by the manifold evils of desire and so forth. Yeah, when we're sick, we go to the doctor, we follow the doctor's advice. Here's the Buddha giving us advice. Yeah, for how to heal ourselves emotionally, mentally, spiritually. We need to listen. And if all people dwelling on this earth can be overcome by just one of these, and if no other medicine can cure them, it is found elsewhere. It is to be found elsewhere in the universe. Then the intention not to act in accordance with the advice of the all-knowing physicians, the Buddhas, that can uproot every misery is extremely bewildering and worthy of scorn. So if we have access to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, we learn the teachings, but we don't apply them, then it's quite confusing. What in the world are we doing? And he's saying it's worthy of scorn too. You know, it's like there was the Buddha teaching us all along and we ignored him. And then when we're dying, we go, Buddha, please help me. Yeah. If I need to be careful near a small, ordinary precipice, then how much more so near the one of long duration that drops for 1,000 miles? So if I need to, the one that drops for 1,000 miles is, our death and future life. So if we need to be careful in just to protect our body, this lifetime, then how much more important is it to protect ourselves from suffering in future lives by practicing sincerely now? It is inappropriate to enjoy myself thinking that today alone I shall not die, for inevitably the time will come where I shall become nothing. Who can grant me fearlessness? How can I be surely freed from this? If I shall inevitably become nothing, how can I relax and enjoy myself? So it doesn't mean become nothing like after death, there's nothing, we cease to exist. It means this whole ego identity, this whole person that we've constructed that we think we are, when we die, no longer exists. The continuity of consciousness goes on. There's another person that arises. Yeah. But all our trophies, all of our awards, all of our degrees, who do they belong to after we're not here anymore? What remains with me now from the terminated experiences of the past? Photos. But through my great attachment to these experiences, I have been going against my spiritual mentor's advice. Having departed from this life and from all my friends and relatives, if all alone I must go elsewhere, what is the use of making friends and enemies? So he's not saying here, don't have friends. He's saying, what's the use of getting attached to other people? Yeah, clinging on to them, exaggerating their goodness so that you love them so much that you're willing to create negativity for their sake. And certainly, what's the use of creating enemies? Of holding grudges against people who have harmed us or who we think have harmed us. Because lots of times people haven't harmed us, we just think they have. How can I surely be freed from unwholesomeness, the source of misery? Continually, night and day, I should only consider this. Whatever has been done by me through ignorance and unknowing, be it the breaking of a precept or a deed by nature wrong, I humbly confess it all in the presence of the protectors, with palms together, prostrating myself again and again, my mind terrified by the misery to come. I beseech all the guides of the world, the Buddhas, to accept my negativities and wrongs. Since these are not good, in the future I shall do them no more. Okay. So that's chapter 2. And then from there, in chapter 3, he goes into rejoicing and with developing all sorts of wonderful, beautiful aspirations for benefiting other living beings. Shall I read some of that? It's not too long. You want something uplifting after that? Yeah. Gladly do I rejoice in the virtue that relieves the misery of all those in unfortunate state, and that places them with those with suffering in happiness. I rejoice in that gathering of virtue that is the cause for an arhat's awakening. I rejoice in the definite freedom of embodied creatures from the miseries of cyclic existence. I rejoice in the awakening of the Buddhas and also in the spiritual levels of the Bodhisattvas. And with gladness I rejoice in the ocean of virtue from developing an awakening mind that wishes all beings to be happy, as well as in the deeds that bring them benefit. So all this rejoicing makes the mind very happy. Yeah? So this is an important practice for, people who feel like, what in the world is happening in the world now? This kind of rejoicing is very important because when we look around, we see there's a lot of goodness. Yeah. And we see there's, there may be some policies and people that are harming others, but, especially now, so many more people are speaking out and speaking up and engaging in positive actions, getting involved in things. So we need to rejoice in all that virtue. Yeah, and we need to see that the more we hang together and work together for creating the kind of society we want, the more we'll be able to be successful. Whereas the more we just say, this world is going to hell in a handbasket, and be like an ostrich and stick our head in the sand, then nothing much is going to come from that. Okay, so there is a lot to look at and to feel good about, and we should recognize that. With folded hands, I beseech the Buddhas of all directions to shine the lamp of Dharma for all bewildered in misery's gloom. May Donnie and the whole U.S. Congress hear the Dharma. Yeah? Doesn't that make you feel good to think of them sitting? I mean, think of Donnie sitting respectfully, with humility, listening to His Holiness teach the Dharma. You can visualize, can't you? Yeah, he is capable of that. Unlikely to happen, but he has that capability. If not this life, future lives. Okay?
Maybe if he saw it on Saturday Night Live first.
Then he'd do it. With folded hands, I beseech the conquerors who wish to pass away to please remain for countless eons and not to leave the world in darkness. Thus, by the virtue collected through all that has been done, may the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. May a rain of flood and drink descend to clear away the pains of hunger and thirst. And during the times of famine, may I myself May I myself change into food and drink. May I become an inexhaustible treasure for those who are poor and destitute. May I turn into all things they could need, and may I be placed close beside them. And then the chapter goes on like that, wishing to become whatever it is that sentient beings need. So it's quite beautiful. I wanted to leave a little time for questions or comments. You have, yeah. Okay, the title of the book, there's different ways to translate it. Yeah, the Sanskrit is Bodhicharyavatara, but it's translated into Guide to a Bodhisattva's Deeds, Engaging in a Bodhisattva's Conduct, Engaging in a Bodhisattva's Way of Life. There's many such.
But there are many
translations.
commentaries. There are many commentaries on the Bodhisattva way of life. So what you were reading is from which?
This book, one of the translations of the Sanskrit title, Bodhicharyavatara, is Engaging in a Bodhisattva's Way of Life. That's a translation of one of the titles.
Thank you.
Okay. If you look for the author Shantideva, Shantideva, yeah, then this is his fantastic, best, wonderful book. Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yeah.
I've had many times in purification where I'm sort of unsure if what I did was non-virtuous. And so a lot of doubt and confusion come up in regard, should I purify? Should I not? And so in one case recently, I decided, I'll just make it a bit broader and encompass many of similar actions just to be safe. So I guess my question is, is that an appropriate way to deal with it? Or
Yeah, well, it's like I said yesterday, sometimes it takes us a while to figure out why we did what we did. It's not at all clear to us. Yeah. So if you're in doubt, listen to your gut. Do you feel like that action was inappropriate? Do you feel that it weighs your mind down? Yeah. Is it something that when you think about, you feel uncomfortable about inside? Yeah, that might help to discern it a little bit.
So maybe if I'm worrying about it, I should purify it.
Maybe. Yeah. Because sometimes that ambivalence is, well, I really don't want to admit that I did that. So, but you have to see yourself what it is. I can't tell you. Okay? But you can make it a broad, general kind of category too.
And my question is reading this chapter a purification practice, just to sit down and read it with contemplation, deep consciousness?
Yeah. Reading this and meditating along with it is itself a great purification practice. And read it even more slowly than I read it. Yeah. Yeah, actually, one time I did a retreat just on this book. Yeah, and I think we should, some winter retreat at the Abbey, we should do that. Yeah. Though it'll take us a few winter retreats, I suspect. Dan? Oh, I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
I'm just wondering about, I don't know if you've taken empowerments I guess it would be a tantric commitment, but I'm not sure. Like, say, if I've taken a white Tara and I haven't been able to, for whatever reason, keep the commitment of doing well, at least the minimum amount of mantra every day as part of that commitment. I haven't been able to do that. Is that considered a non-virtue? Is it something I should purify
Yes.
for? Okay.
Yes. Because we made promises to the Buddha and then we didn't keep them. So definitely to purify and to start keeping the commitments we made. Yeah. And you'll feel better.
I always mess up my questions when I go to actually ask you a question because my head gets muddled. So forgive me if it comes out wrong. I was thinking about going back a little bit more to the beginning of the teaching and thinking about insecurities. We were kind of talking about it in the context of the Me Too movement, but our vulnerabilities are often our trigger points. We tend to get reactive around the areas we feel most insecure in.
Yeah.
And you live in a community of people, and you're all, and I live with a Dharma partner too. And I'm wondering how we help support each other as Dharma friends. It sounds like ultimately you were saying, we have to overcome our own insecurities by telling ourselves a different story. But as friends to people who have insecurities or, people who know us and know our own insecurities, how we can support one another in moving past those and rebuilding a story for ourselves, because it tends to be the worst part of our relationship. Like our relationships tend to get sticky around those insecurities.
Yes. Yeah. I think one way is to have compassion for each other, for our insecurities, and the fact that we write our own horror stories and write our own dramas and then get stuck in them. But then also, when you have a close relationship with somebody, you can begin to point it out to them. When they're stuck, when they're rerunning the old video about I'm insecure because then you can point it out in a gentle way. Yeah, because if they're really stuck in the middle of it, you need to point it out very gently. Yeah, and then also when people point out things to us, we should be willing to listen. Yeah, we usually go instantly into defensive mode. Don't tell me about my faults. Don't tell me about my insecurity. The pot calling the kettle black, But if we all, have a sincere wish inside to change and transform ourselves, then when somebody, especially somebody we know well, who we trust, points something out to us, even though it may, we should listen, because if we listen, it's helping us see something about ourselves. And by seeing that, then we can begin to change it. Yeah. And sometimes when we get familiar enough with our old habits and our old videos, if somebody says something to us, we become able to instantly recognize it and drop it. That takes time and it takes practice, but it's definitely possible. Yeah. So I think that's one thing. I think another thing is when you see the people that you live with, that you're close to, actually making progress in healing their buttons, point that out to them. Give them some good feedback. And give very specific feedback. Don't just say, "Oh, you're really changing your buttons." That doesn't tell anybody. Or you're really healing your insecurities. Well, I have 10,000 of them. What are you talking about? But to say, in that situation, yeah, you before you may very well have acted like this, and now you're, look what you just did. Yeah, you acted in a very different way now, and this is really showing how you're changing. Yeah, and how working on yourself is paying off. So point those instances out to them. Yeah, and when they point them out to you, take it in. Don't just say, oh, no, I didn't really do anything good. You don't really know me. I'm really an awful person. Why are you flattering me? Just take it in. Somebody praised you. Somebody pointed out something good. Say thank you. And then let yourself feel good about it.
As a former elementary school teacher, I lived in a world that was mostly women. And there'd be the exceptional man that would show up every now and then on the staff. And often it would happen wherever I was that the women would make derogatory comments like, oh, that's pretty good for a man. And, I didn't have the skills at that time to confront these people. I would leave the room because I didn't want to be part of it.
Yeah.
And it's also the reason why I didn't want to be part of the feminist movement, because what I saw was huge anger and really derogatory speech. But I'm wondering if just being silent, which is what we've seen the world do, men and women included, until this Harvey Weinstein thing blew up, is that by being silent, what negativity is that? And that should be purified, right?
Yeah. It's hard to say. There are some situations where it is definitely best to be silent. Yeah. And some situations we may see that this is just not the kind of situation I want to get involved in, or whatever. You have to look at each situation individually. But when we're silent out of fear, a negative kind of fear, then we need to rethink that. Yeah. I don't know that you can say it's necessarily negative, because it depends on the person's motivation. Yeah. One person could be silent saying, oh, this kind of thing is too much for me to handle, and another person could be silent saying, I don't have the position within this group such that they will listen to me. And another person could be silent saying, I'm so mad at these people, let them just screw up anyway. Yeah. So, you can't make a blanket statement about that.
Admit to having a little difficulty with the advice you gave about fault finding. I mean, so that we should listen to somebody who's pointing our faults out. I feel like I'm pretty aware of my own faults, and I don't feel like it's their responsibility to point them out, constantly remind me. I mean, especially if there's a pattern of a person constantly nitpicking and fault finding, then I feel like, okay, there's a line here. But I do see kind of what you're saying, but I also can see the other side of it where, like, I don't know that it's necessarily their responsibility to do that. I mean, I think I would listen to it, but if it's not true or real, then there's a point where I just might have to put the brakes on that, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, if I saw you going down a slippery slope, would you want me to say something to you?
You, yes.
Okay. Now, there's other people who can see things that I can't, that may have equal compassion for you.
They're also under the influence of karma, afflictions, and confused.
But they're what?
They're also under the influence of karma and afflictions.
Yeah,
and
so am I.
Confused. Yeah. So
Yeah.
how is that helping then?
So, they also, another question here, Dan, is where are you going to go in the world where people are not going to point out your faults? Tell me where you can go. Anybody here, tell me where you can go. No, tell me where you can go, where you can be assured that nobody will point out your faults. Yeah, there is no such place. So we have to get used to people pointing out our faults. And when they do, we have two choices. We can get defensive and angry, or we can listen. If we listen, they may say something that is valuable for us to hear. ignore their tone of voice, ignore the volume of their voice, but look at, do they have something here that maybe could benefit me to hear? And if what they're saying is completely off the wall, then also no sense to get upset. Okay? Because our whole life, we're going to have to deal with people telling us our faults. Because we have them and they see them. Yeah? And we can't cover up our faults fast enough. And even when we cover them up, people still see through our cover-ups. Yeah? So I think we just have to, this is, if you don't like being criticized, become a bodhisattva. Yeah, become a Buddha. Then people will still criticize you because they criticize Buddhas and bodhisattvas, but your mind won't get bummed out about it. But they'll still criticize you. Yeah. Okay, we're going to have to stop now. I know there's many more comments. And now you're all worked up. You've forgotten about the chapter about death. I think we need to go back and think some more about that one.